The winds that sweep across Connemara today once echoed with the laughter of farm children, the clang of gates and the hum of handwork. But by 1961, those same winds carried silence. In less than 2 decades, 500,000 people vanished from Ireland's soil, pulled by the promise of opportunity abroad, pushed by an economy that could not hold them. A walk through western hamlets in 1945 showed life, children barefoot with turf sacks, mothers tending low stone gardens. By 1961, the same lanes bore the shadow of absence. This documentary begins here, not in a capital, but in the folds of countryside, where roots ran deep and departure came quietly. What caused such a mass exodus? For many, it was the same pattern repeated through generations. The land too poor, the prospects too few, and the dreams too big for a nation still struggling in the shadows of war and empire. In the post-war world, Irish youth looked to England, America, and beyond, not as distant lands, but as destinations of survival. Their letters home told stories of factories and hostels, heartbreak and hope. What remained in Ireland was a quieter country, older, lonelier, stitched together by memories. This film tells their story and ours. They didn't leave with parades, no brass bands, no farewell speeches. For most, emigration was a quiet act, a note left on the kitchen table, a last look at the moss-covered stone walls of home. Between 1945 and 1961, over 500,000 Irish souls, many under 30, stepped aboard ships and trains with small bags and large hopes. In villages like Ballinrobe, Clonakilty and Carrickmacross, the rhythm of life shifted. Fewer voices at the church gate, fewer hands at harvest. Gone were the young women whose presence lit hearts and lifted songs. Those left behind scanned letters for signs of joy or sorrow, and in silent kitchens, parents adjusted to absence like they did to weather, without complaint, but never without feeling. They walked into the unknown with second-hand coats and rosary beads tucked deep in their pockets. Often alone, often afraid, They crossed waters with the memory of home stitched into the lining of their minds. In Birmingham, boarding houses and Bronx apartments, they held tightly to stories their mothers told them, to the scent of peat fires and Sunday stews. A photograph on the mantelpiece became a shrine, proof that their lives had roots. But roots tug at you, even from across an ocean. Some never returned. Time reshaped their voices, their clothes, their customs. They became aunties with English accents or uncles who didn't know the name of the townlands anymore. Yet, on rainy nights or over cups of tea, Ireland still lived in them, vivid and stubborn, like the moss that clings to stone. In the stillness of emigration, the loudest sound was memory. Of all those who left, it was often the women who went first. Between 1945 and 1961, young Irish women emigrated in astonishing numbers, tens of thousands crossing seas alone. In the eyes of a struggling nation, they were the expendable ones. Fewer were expected to inherit farms. Fewer had opportunities to work beyond domestic service, and yet it was their quiet courage that changed lives, both abroad and at home. In parishes across Roscommon, Wexford, and Leitrim, farewells became ritual. Mothers packed small cases, fathers stood in silence, a daughter kissed the kitchen wall where her height was once marked in pencil. Then she vanished into the current of history, one of many swept up by necessity. In London hospitals and New York restaurants, Irish women found strength in one another. They shared stories, held each other through homesickness, passed letters between bunk beds like rosary beads. They sent money home, not just coins, but lifelines. Wages earned, scrubbing stairs, built stone walls in Clare, bought boots for brothers in Donegal, paid school fees for sisters in Cavan. These women were never just absent, they were bridges. But something vanished too. Their departure meant fewer weddings, fewer children, fewer voices in the choir. Rural towns grew quieter, schools closed, community threads frayed. The villages they left behind began to feel their shape in the hollow. And yet, they rarely told their full story. It lived in fragments, a photo faded in a wallet, a diary buried in a box, a memory passed in hushed tones at wakes. These were Ireland's unsung heroines, fierce, tender, burdened with hope. They didn't just survive emigration, they carried it. The heartbeat of rural Ireland once pulsed from the parish, not just a place of worship, but of gathering, where births were whispered, deaths mourned, and dances plotted after Mass. From Galway to Tipperary, the parish was a centre of gravity, spiritual, social, ancestral. But with every emigrant who left, that gravity weakened. In the 1950s and early 60s, dwindling congregations led priests to shutter chapels where hymns once soared. The absence of young families meant fewer baptisms, fewer communions. Choirs grew faint. Marriage bans, once posted in clusters, became rare. On cold Sundays, old men knelt alone in pews, reciting rosaries for sons in England and daughters in Boston. The parish hall, once lively with ceilidh dancing, football, fundraisers, and card nights, stood still. Notices curled on cork boards. Dust claimed the piano. Electricity still hummed, but laughter did not return. In places like Kinvara and Skibbereen, church bells rang for funerals far more often than festivals. For many, the priest became the last witness to continuity. He recalled surnames across generations, lit candles for names fading from the register. He walked muddy lanes to visit widows whose kitchens held only one chair. And when he retired or died, often no replacement came. The vanishing parish wasn't just a loss of faith, it was a loss of rhythm, of narrative, of shared breath. When emigrants left, they carried sacred soil in their memory. The scent of beeswax, the choir's gentle discord, the feel of holy water on a fevered brow. But the parish they remembered began to fade in their absence. Today, some stand in ruins, others remain stone quiet, but standing. Their silence is not a forgetting, but a waiting. The emigrant's journey didn't end at the dock. It lingered in envelopes creased by distance and longing. Postmarked from Boston, Birmingham, or Ballarat, letters carried homesickness and ritual pressed between folds of ink. In rural Ireland, the postman became a bearer of breathless hope. His bicycle at the gate, a shuffle of paper, a nod that said, "America remembers." In cottages along boreens, mothers traced every curve of their son's handwriting, watching for signs of hardship or happiness. A daughter in Leeds wrote of her job at the linen factory, her children's accents drifting from Irish to English, and always the money enclosed, folded with care, a lifeline tucked into page 2. Letters became relics. Some were tucked beneath mattresses, reread until the paper thinned. Others were kept in biscuit tins beside the hearth, chronicles of migration, fragments of identity. When a parish faded, correspondence remained, binding the vanished community with traces of affection and grief. But not every letter arrived, lost in transit, delayed for months, or never written at all. Silence between siblings could stretch for decades. A return address might vanish with eviction or war. Still, families waited, lighting candles beside unopened envelopes, whispering names over empty pages. The local shopkeeper marked a decline in postage. By the late 1960s, fewer stamps were sold, aerograms faded from counters, emigration had become fact, and the flurry of early letters slowed. Some immigrants married abroad, settled, died, never sending word back. Yet, in attics and shoeboxes, their voices survive. Phrases like, I miss the fields in May, or tell Bridie I haven't forgotten the dance, echo between folds. Not all stories were spoken, but many were postmarked. The houses remain empty now, but brimming once with bread steam, fiddle tunes, and bedtime prayers. Sills sag, thatched roofs yield to moss and time. Yet in the stillness, echoes gather. No suitcase ever returned with the same weight it departed. Few came back at all. The roads home narrowed, not just by miles, but by change. Children raised abroad lost fluency in these fields. Some arrived decades later, tracing family roots with uncertainty, their steps timid against ancestral soil. Others sent no word, their absence stretching from reason to season, until grief wore thin and names faded from daily speech. Some stories do return. A niece fluent in photographs places flowers on the grave of a woman she only knew through her father's voice. In a quiet chapel, the candle flickers not for mass, but for memory. The priest, retired but robed, opens the dusty ledger, revisiting names carved in ink long before he first knelt. Stone endures what stories forget. Family headstones, crooked in a windswept cemetery, bear surnames no longer spoken. A rusted gate swings, a lone bird calls, and the air carries a kind of reverence, not for spectacle, but for survival. The scene doesn't close with answers, it offers presence, the presence of absence, the presence of continuity. What emigrants left behind was not forsaken, it waited in ruins, in ritual, in rain-softened names. The final act of this parish is not final, it hums in the hush, just beyond hearing.
Step into the past and uncover the heart of Ireland. At Emerald Chronicle, we bring you hundreds of captivating documentaries exploring Irish history, myths, legends, and folklore. Our playlists guide you through Ireland's fascinating journey, from prehistoric Ireland, proto-historic and Celtic eras, and the early Christian and Viking periods, to the Anglo-Irish invasion and the lordship of Ireland.
Delve deeper into the Tudor conquest and religious conflicts, the union with Great Britain and the Great Famine, the fight for independence and the divisions of the 20th century, and Ireland's evolution into the 21st century. Best of all, we keep all our documentaries at 15 minutes or less, making it easy to explore Ireland's history, even on a busy day.
Every time you watch, you're supporting the upkeep of our channel. And when you share Emerald Chronicle, you're helping to promote Irish history and culture worldwide. We kindly ask you to like and share and subscribe to Emerald Chronicle now. Let's keep Ireland's stories alive together.